Assalamualaikum, dear students. This is Khizra Akib in your online class of English literature. This is our sixth lecture and sixth poem, The Man He Killed by Thomas Hardy. The poem which we discussed today was also by Thomas Hardy. I have given you an introduction of Thomas Hardy. Today I'll directly talk about the poem. This poem is, you may say, an anti-war poem because Hardy has expressed his disgust for war. He has described the evil impacts of war that dehumanizes human beings. Uh, he had expressed the insanity of war. There is no logic, there is no sanity involved in war, and according to him, there is no place of war in the modern civilized society because it was something old and it must not exist in the modern world. Okay, let's start reading the poem. Had he and I but met by some old ancient inn, we should have sat us down to vet right many an epperkin, but ranged as infantry and staring face to face, I shot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. I shot him dead because he was my foe. Just so, my foe of course he was, that's clear enough, although he thought he would list perhaps offhand like just as I was out of work and sold his traps, no other reason why. Yes, quaint and curious war is. You shoot a fellow down, you would treat if met where any bar is, or help to half a crown. Okay, had he and I but met by some old ancient inn. The poet is talking about two soldiers who are uh, standing in the two opposite armies who are there line by line, ready to attack each other. They are there to kill each other, they are there to attack each other only on the bidding of their rulers, only on the bidding of their commanders. Okay, but the soldier who had killed the other one, he thinks, had he and I but met by some old ancient inn, we should have sat us down to wet right many an epperkin. He thinks that if he had met that soldier at some other place, in some other circumstances, in some other situation, he might have had very friendly relations with that soldier. He might have had spent a good time with him. They might have sat down at an inn and had a playful and happy time and had enjoyed many drinks. It seems that there is a sense of guilt in the soldier who had killed the other one, because he is trying to find out the reason why he had killed that soldier, because he had no personal grudge, he had no personal enmity against that soldier. He had done this only because the other soldier was there in the opposite army, and he don't have the personal grudge. That thing is emphasized by the poet, and that can be guessed from the very title as well. The poet says the man he killed. He doesn't mention any name. The man, that is quite anonymous, that is quite unknown, that is quite, uh, you may say, there is no clue to the identity of the man. This thing reinforces the idea that the soldier is feeling guilty, that he is not happy to kill a person whom he even didn't know, whom he even against whom he didn't entertain any grudge or any sort of enmity. Okay, come to the next stanza. But ranged as infantry and staring face to face, I shot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. But they didn't meet at an inn or at some old ancient pub or at some other place where they could have a very good and playful time. Rather, they met in, in the infantry, ranged as infantry. They met in the battlefield, ranged as infantry, ranged as the uh, opposite armies, and staring face to face. They were ready to attack, prepared to attack each other. I shot at him as he at me. This soldier shot the other one, and the other one shot at him and killed him in his place. And this soldier killed the other soldier. Now he is feeling guilty and he is trying to find out the reason why had he done this. I shot him dead because he was my foe. And this word because shows that he is feeling guilty and he is trying to figure out the reason why had he killed that soldier. I shot him dead because he was my foe. In the first line, he is not sure why had he killed that soldier, but in the next line, because he was my foe, he identified a reason that the other soldier was his foe, was his enemy. Just so, my foe, of course he was. Of course, he was his enemy. Why was he his enemy? Because he was ranged in the other side, in the opposing army. That is clear enough, and that is enough to kill a person. But this soldier is not happy on this reason for killing a soldier, for killing a man, only because you know that he has joined the opposite army. Although he thought he would list perhaps offhand, like just as I was out of work, had sold his traps. And this soldier also knows uh, that a person only joins an army when he is out of work, when he is going through some hard circumstances. Then he cannot uh, then he can then he is unable to support himself or to his family financially. And he also guessed that this man, this soldier whom he had killed, he might have to he might have to sell his traps, his hunting games, or his belongings for joining the army. No other reason why. There is no other reason why had he killed the other soldier, other than the reason that they were in a battlefield and they both belong to the opposite armies. Yes, quaint and curious war is. You shoot a fellow down. He says that how strange and old fashioned a war is. This is not something belonging to this modern civilized society, and it must not exist. It must not have any place in the modern civilized society, because you shoot a fellow down, you would treat, if met where any bar is, that you would treat a person happily, positively. If you have had met that person at some other place, at some pub, at some inn, at some hotel, bar, etc., or helped to half a crown, or you might have had helped that person even with money. If you have had met that person at some different place, how curious and quaint, how strange the war is. Okay, girls, the major theme of this poem is his disgust for war, and that the poet feels that war dehumanizes the human beings. It makes them devoid of humanity, of feelings, of emotions. This is exactly what happened to the poet, that to the protagonist of this poem, who is thinking there is some that there is no reason of killing the other soldier. uh, but he but he was unable to entertain any sort of soft feelings and emotions in the battlefield, and he couldn't have mercy on that soldiers, and he couldn't spare that soldier because war has made him dehumanized. And even the structure of this poem also reinforces this aspect of the war, that it dehumanizes the human being.